Thank you. We were all saddened and devastated to learn of the sudden passing of Helen Eadie at the weekend. Our thoughts are with Helen's family, to Bob, to Fiona, to Gemma, and all her grandchildren and other family members. I'd like to inform members that a book of condolence for Helen is available for members to sign in the black and white corridor. A motion of condolence for Helen will be taken next week, when we will be able to pay our full tribute to her. The next item of business is consideration of business motion 8279 in the name of Joe Fitzpatrick on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau, setting out revisions to the business programme for this week. Any member who wishes to speak against the motion should press the request to speak button now. And I call on Joe Fitzpatrick to move motion number 8279.
Formally moved.
No member is asked to speak against the motion, therefore I now put the question to the Chamber. The question is that motion number 8279 in the name of Joe Fitzpatrick be agreed to. Are we all agreed? The motion is therefore agreed to. We now move to topical questions. Question number 1, Liam MacArthur.
Thank you very much. Presiding Officer, can I echo your sentiments in regard to the desperately sad passing of Helen Eadie, and to ask the Scottish Government what assistance it is providing to the Philippines through its International Development Fund following Typhoon Haiyan.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
The typhoon that struck the Philippines on Friday is one of the worst to make landfall in history, causing untold destruction and devastation to the Filipino people. I know that members will join me in expressing the deepest sympathy and condolences from the Scottish people, and I have written to the Ambassador and the Consul General of the Philippines in these terms. Following the launch of the Philippines Typhoon Appeal by the Disasters Emergency Committee today, I can announce that the Scottish Government will be donating £600,000 to the appeal. These funds will be spent by some of our leading aid agencies working in the region to provide much-needed relief for those affected, including the provision of clean water, food, shelter and medical supplies. I would like to take this opportunity to urge the people of Scotland to dig deep to help support our aid agencies responding to the devastation caused by the typhoon, in addition to the Scottish Government's donation. And I know that response teams from some NGOs, including Scottish aid workers, are already in the Philippines assessing the situation and beginning to distribute relief supplies, and I pay tribute to their work.
Liam MacArthur.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for her response and very much welcome the announcement of the £600,000 in aid. Clearly, the unfolding disaster affecting millions in the Philippines has been brought home in the most graphic of detail to people in this country, and I share with her the view that the public in Scotland will, as ever, respond quickly and generously to support the efforts of Oxfam, Red Cross, SCIAF and the other international aid bodies striving to help those suffering at this time. Given the gravity of the situation, the constantly changing conditions in the disaster zone, will the Scottish Government commit to keeping under constant review, in close collaboration with UK ministers and DEC, the support which it can offer? And in particular, can the Cabinet Secretary advise the Chamber on what specific steps have been taken to direct assistance to the elderly, young, disabled and others who may be least able to stand in queues for long periods awaiting food, clean water and other essentials?
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank the member for his point, his question. In terms of keeping in touch with the UK Government and indeed the agencies, we will do that. Obviously, the conditions are desperate, and desperate weather is also difficult weather is also causing further difficulties in the area. The Disaster Emergency Committee is made up of representatives from different organisations, as he is well aware, including the British Red Cross. Norman McKinley, for example, is chairing the Scottish Disaster Emergency Committee. But they also include Help the Aged and Save the Children, and we found from other disasters that targeted help for those groups and individuals is really important, because they are the most vulnerable of people who are in a very vulnerable situation generally. So I think his point is well made. This has got resonances of the Boxing Day tsunami in terms of the degree and extent of devastation, and because of the disparate nature of the geography in the islands, there is still some lack of knowledge about what's happening elsewhere. So constant attention and vigilance is required. Immediate response now, but continued response in the weeks and indeed months ahead.
Liam MacArthur.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for that further response, and certainly share concerns about the immediate issues facing the population in the Philippines, but as well as the immediate humanitarian aid crucial to ensuring further life is not lost. It's clear that the international community needs to help countries like the Philippines, which was ranked third by the UN in a league of countries most likely to be affected by climate change disasters, to ensure that they are able to be better prepared in the future. Will the Scottish Government again undertake to work with the UK Government to help take a lead in ensuring that this help and support is forthcoming from the entire global community? Cabinet Secretary.
Obviously, instances of devastating, disastrous circumstances, as we've just seen, themselves can't be prevented, but the response in terms of what countries can do, there can be some planning in order to help at least ameliorate or alleviate some of the risks. We are committed to climate justice in this country. We were one of the first, if not the first, in the world to develop a climate justice fund. We doubled our contribution to that only weeks ago. And I think it's very important that when we look at these disasters, yes, we have an emergency and immediate response, but Liam MacArthur is quite correct that a lot of what we have to do is to look at that wider impact and the impact of climate change and the impact that's having on devastation disasters that increasingly are happening.
Jimmy McGregor.
Thank you. Will the Minister join me in paying tribute to those individual Scots aid workers who have already flown out to the Philippines, and they have the support and best wishes of all in this chamber?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, indeed. I think it's important that we recognise that so many respond very, very quickly indeed and are there already on the ground. And I would want, in agreement with him, to send our best wishes to all of those aid workers, whether from Scotland or elsewhere, but to wish them the best in what is a very trying and difficult situation for them to bring relief where they can.
Jim Eadie.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the Cabinet Secretary join with me in paying particular tribute to the Mercy Corps, the largest international NGO with their HQ in Scotland, who have 35 staff based in my own constituency? As well as working to provide shelter, water and hygiene, what more can the Scottish Government do to make its expertise and experience available once the TV cameras have been switched off, so that we can assist both long-term recovery and the building of resilience, so that we can mitigate the impact of any future natural disasters in the region?
Cabinet Secretary.
Jim Eadie is very appropriate in identifying Mercy Corps and their contribution to international relief. I've had the opportunity to visit Mercy Corps in his constituency on a previous occasion, and these are organisations that are constantly vigilant, constantly having to deal with situations that are an emergency situation. But he's also quite right in talking about the resilience and the reconstruction that will be required. The Chamber may not be aware, but we've had one of our most eminent architects, for example, was involved in some of the restoration work that took place in terms of housing and other previous disaster areas, John McCaslin in Haiti. But in terms of expertise, etc., we will look to see what we can mobilise, identify. It's very important that all nations work together. United Nations have called for an appeal as we speak, and I've previously spoken to the EU Commissioner, Kristalina Georgieva, in terms of the humanitarian aspects of cooperation across the European Union as well. But we do have expertise, and I'm sure everybody would want to know that Scotland is behind the aid efforts, and we want to do whatever we can to help people, and we can only imagine the situation that they face themselves in, and we will do everything we can to help.
Question number 2, Angus MacDonald.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what the implications are of the Common Agricultural Policy budget settlement in light of the UK Government's outrageous decision not to pass on the immediate uplift in Scotland's budget allocation.
Can I just remind members that in future, when they are asking a question, they must ask the question exactly as it is in the order paper and not add outrageous words. Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I thank the member for raising this issue, and as you will now be aware, I will be making a full statement to the Chamber on the budget allocation immediately after this question. However, the decision not to pass on the added budgets provided to the UK by Europe to Scotland's farmers is hugely disappointing and will severely limit what we can deliver under the future Common Agricultural Policy in this country. There will be less resource to support our food producers and, of course, leaves us with very difficult choices in how we allocate our budgets here in Scotland. We considered that the fuel convergence uplift should rightly come to Scotland because the UK was only awarded it due to our very low average rate of direct payment support, less than half of the European average per hectare in Scotland. all other parts of the UK are at or are above the EU average. Without the convergence uplift, Scotland's average per hectare rate will only be €128 per hectare. By 2019, when the EU's lowest average rate for member states will be €196 per hectare.
As there is going to be a statement on the Common Agricultural Policy budget allocation immediately after topical questions, Angus MacDonald has waived his right to ask any supplementary questions. So therefore, I now move